Money, business, success, it's all about perspective. Welcome to The Balanced Perspective, the podcast where we discuss all things business.
Hi, and welcome back to The Balanced Perspective. I have the distinct pleasure of having a young entrepreneur. And let me tell you something. When you hear his story, I'm not gonna dip into his intro, but when you hear his story, you're gonna be amazed. Sitting with us is Enin. Enin, glad to have you here.
Glad to be here.
Right.
Tired. Ain't sleeping a few days, but that's the business. So much stuff going on right now, and then trying to manage it as CEO, but soon not to be CEO.
So Enin, for those that do not know who you are, give them what you gave me when we had a chance to sit down.
Well, I guess the best way that I put it, without even getting into it, is I help people with money and people without money make even more money. Yeah, short of it. But I own a few different businesses in technology and finance, and the main thing that most people know me for is the investment platform called Prospuh that allows people throughout the Caribbean to be able to invest in over 12,000 U.S. stocks and international stocks and over 4,000 ETFs. So, and automate their investments as well with a minimum of $20. So I started that platform, and then I have a few other businesses as well. But that's what people would tend to, as somebody said to me earlier today, I only know you digitally. So people see me on their feed all the time. That's why they know me.
So, Enin, you're what, 28 now?
No, I just turned 26.
You just turned 26. So 26. How long have you been an entrepreneur? Where did you start? Like, give us that story.
I mean, I've been an entrepreneur since I was probably about 12. I think for me, I always noticed that I wanted more, and I had good and interesting stories along the way because I did really good in high school. But I would attest to my high school to maybe two people. One would be Kyle, the other would be my big brother. It was always interesting because you would see the two perspectives of people in your life, and it would be like Kyle was in set with me. My older brother was obviously older than I was, but Kyle used to come to school every day with $100 in his pocket. I always would ask him for $1, and he doesn't.
I'm sorry, and where were we in school at this point? We're coming to with $100 in our pocket.
High school, grade 7. But he used to go and work in the morning for his dad, and then come to school afterwards. Yeah, and then he would have $300, $400 in his pocket all the time. When I asked for $1, I'd be like, hold on, I gotta rate this yard. And I'd be like, okay, cool. He always have $100 on him. And then my big brother I always felt like he could do anything really and truly. Like, he was very like creative, a creative mind, and always made me feel like I could go and try to do anything that I put my mind to. Right. So between those two things, led me into the spiraling world of like finance, and I would go home and I would search up how to make money. But before I did that, there was one thing that clicked with the two things of those relationships, and then that. My dad, it was one time, and I tell a lot of people this story because there's a huge importance of it, even when you become a father. My dad, I won't say where he worked or anything, but my dad worked a good job in my opinion. And one day, he never picked me up from school. Right, I used to be an athlete. I was a world-class athlete as well, and he never picked me up from school. And one day he offered to pick me up from school. It was weird because I would catch a ride to practice every day and home every day. And he was like, "Hey, I come pick you up, be there in 3:15, right?"
Mm-hmm.
If my dad said 3:15, if my dad 3:16, he gone. Right, so whatever he says, he means, right? Like, that's just who he is as a person, right? And so I remember now him picking me up, and we went to First Caribbean in town by Centerville, right before they moved it. Signed on the cash register, and hey, can I have $10,000 in cash? Give me 8,000 in hundreds, and the next 2,000 in 20s. Got the money off his account. He placed that money on the stairs, right? Like right at the bottom of the stairs. And Monday was coming up. So the weekend came, Monday came, and I said, "Hey, Daddy, I could get $20 for lunch money." He looks at me, he says, "No, you can't. I'm broke." I say, okay. You know, he's like, figure it out.
After 10,000 withdrawal.
At 10, and I offered to stay in the car, right? And he said, no, you coming over me. Take me on the line. I offered to sit at the door. No, come stand with me on the line, right? So I went, stood with him on the line, did all of this stuff, and then he pulled off the $10,000. And then Monday, he was broke, and I'll get back to that in the end, which is interesting. But because of that, the next weekend I went to school. I started hustling, begging for dollar, figuring out this, figuring that out, and I went home on the weekend. I searched up how to make money. Of course, options trading, futures trading, this and that. So I started options trading when I was pretty young, and then I transferred into derivatives. I had a joint account with my mom back when I was 12, and I started trading. I started with $200, and then I would hustle at school, and not proudest moments, but I'd beg for dollar, and that made a lot of money. And I would also be throwing dice as well, and I would come home with more money and lunch every day. And so I would spend times in the nighttime just learning. I never did good in school because I never cared about school. But by the time I graduated school, in grade 11, I had about like $25,000 in my broker account. And then grade 12, I had 127. I think it was exactly like 100. Yeah, 127 it was. And then I ended up on the plane going to college. I sit next to this Bahamian guy. This is like, yeah, I don't want to make it sound like years ago, but feel like years ago because of life, right? But I was in the plane sitting next to this guy, and he said to me, I said to him, I was like, nice watch. Like, you know, I could appreciate those things back then, and I paid attention to those things. I was motivated by those things. I said, nice watch, man. You know, and, you know, we were going from Nassau to Fort Lauderdale, right? And when we talked about everything, you know, he was cool, told me what he did, and I can remember his face, but I've never seen him again since then. I got his number. I don't even know what phone that's on, right? And he was just like, if you do anything, and this was as you imagine, this is I got out of school in 2016. He's like, is anything you do right now, go and buy XRP. I was like, XRP? What's XRP, right? Like, I was like, but you know, I had the money. So I started purchasing Ripple back in the day, before the first crypto wave, right? And I averaged Ripple price, I think it was 7 cents before it went up to $3 the first time.
Jeez.
And so, but I mean, the lesson and the timeline that built that, I wasn't always the perfect kid, but I go back to starting back and answering what my dad meant, because it took me until I was 24 to ask my dad, what did he mean by broke? And in the lesson that I take into like the nonprofit and all the things that I do for people now today is, life, a man like Alexander the Great is a man that has conquered the whole entire world. And you imagine a man that conquers the world has many riches.
Yes.
But nobody speaks about his riches. They speak about what he's done. Wealth and riches is not about what you have. It's about what you do. And for me, at my age, that's why I lead with a lot of education, nonprofit, giving back to kids, being involved, and trying to change the community, because the reality behind it is nobody's going to remember me for my cool car, nice house, or any of that. They remember me for, hey, I know that guy because he stopped and talked to me and he saw me. So that's kind of like what started me on this path, and why, you know, entrepreneurship. And it was definitely Kyle and my big brother. And then I got self-motivated, and I never was not behind a computer screen learning something. I continued learning.
So all of the right tools. So Kyle, big brother, dad, and we'll call the flight that financial angel, if you will.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Has helped to bring the man that we see here today.
Yeah.
And listen, as a young budding Bahamian entrepreneur, these are the type of stories that you don't often get a chance to hear. I love the fact that you say that you take the time out and you lead with education. So you're not only educating yourself for personal development, but you're taking the time out to educate others as well.
Yeah.
This episode of the Balanced Perspective podcast is brought to you by Balance Advisors. We keep your business in balance.
In terms of investing, if you had to give advice to anybody, not just the young person, because you said you started at 12. So anyone that now says that they can't start until they get a certain amount of money, that's clearly out the window. What advice would you give someone that wants to invest in any form of stocks, bonds?
Mm-hmm. So to date, on three things, I guess I'll start with company side of things. To date, I've started 18 companies to date. Going into 19 next year. And to date, I think on average, if I average off, about 12 of those companies, I never started with more than $500. Right. So like, I think especially in the world we live in, when you think about, digital space, you don't really require a lot of money to start a business today. I mean, you could learn how to code, that's free, and then charge somebody to do something. You could learn how to, get into AI or marketing or anything. You can learn a skill and then just, and I think that's where people fall short. People fall short on learning as a form of investment.
Right.
And then being able to upsell certain things, because the greatest sin, or you would hear some people say, a very wise older guys say all the time, but the truth is the greatest sin in the world, when it comes down to business and wealth in terms of monetarily, is ignorance. Right? If somebody taught you how to make $1 billion tomorrow, you would be making that $1 billion in that system every single time. But the reality behind it is, I mean, even someone like me, I started trading. Trading is a little different than investing, but I started trading with $200, right? And it's just more consistency. It's not being greedy, not be feeling short term. At 12, I didn't need anything, right? I wasn't a good trader, I would say, until I was about 15 and I understood. But I wanted to be an actuary. I was always good at numbers. But I would just tell people, it's about getting started with anything. If awareness is being able to walk into the kitchen and know that you're hungry, right? But execution is the thing that feeds you and actually makes sure you stay alive, right? Anybody could be aware that they're hungry, right? But if you stand in the kitchen like pointless, then it doesn't make sense. So when it comes to investing, knowing that you're doing something for your future, knowing that it doesn't require a lot of money to do anything. When you look back to $1,000 in Avis, the car company, when they first started, I think a few years later was worth 150K, like within 3 years. Nvidia, if you bought an Nvidia, you bought $1,000 of that right now, you'd have a couple $1 million, right? Like, so the reality behind it, when you think about it, in most cases, if you can just, and I had to learn this with Prospuh. I think I was telling somebody this the other day. Our minimum is $20, right? And right now we have thousands of behemoths on our platform. And until you start something and people come up to you knowing who you are, not knowing them, it's a weird concept, right? Like somebody, like I was in the gas station, somebody tapped me the other day and was to say, hey, I just saw your ad, and, and I'm like, and he's like, I downloaded it, I have money on my account type of thing. What should I invest in? And the dude was my age, he was 25. And I like to say, you never really realize I guess, how much money means to some people, right? Like I've had a client write a long thank you message, breaking down the fact that they can never save up more than $200, right? And they were willing to put their last $200 they had saved onto our platform that's now grown into maybe like 700 or something. But I mean, regardless of it, I think they invested pretty well, to be honest with you. Late last year. But when that person explained to me how much $200 means to them, it put a lot into perspective. And then when you times that by, say, 1,000 behemoths, and you get 200 of them, that where that $300 to you maybe, man, I gotta spend this $300 on this or that. But to them, it's a lot, right? And you start to get a different perspective on the value of money, and it's different in all aspects. But the thing that is the most important thing that everybody understands is the time of what it is that they're willing to gain, right? And even the outlook of what the result is that they want. So I tell people to invest in results, invest in the fact that even as an athlete, I wasn't a good trainer, and I never trained. Like, I mean, when I qualified or when I did my best times, I took 3 months off.
You're one of the naturally gifted ones, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I just it was mental. I want to say it like that. It was all like mental to me, right? But in terms of investing, you just have to be like everything else in your life is consistent. It's not, you know, it's not just you can't buy it, right? It's the thing is like, what is it? They say it's three things. I can't remember what it is, but it's like being fit. You can't buy being fit. You could buy a new body. You could buy looking good. You could buy anything else, but you can't fitness. If you can't run an Ironman with me, you can't run an Ironman with me. You can't buy that. You know what I mean? So, so the reality behind it is too. It's just like, you know, it's awareness, but being able to be consistent, get started with what's comfortable for you, because your big could be $10, and that's
Right.
okay.
Yeah. So it sounds like education, perspective, a little bit of patience as well, right? Because it's not going to happen overnight. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people miss. Everyone wants to click their fingers and automatically be, the next millionaire, the next Bill Gates, right?
Yeah.
With that, because I know offline we started to discuss, value of money. If you can't manage $10, how are you going to manage 10,000 or even 100,000 or a million, right? Given this wonderful track record that you've had in your business endeavors, what advice would you give? Just general advice would you give in terms of just the pitfalls that you have had, and then in terms of greatest successes?
Okay. And as you just mentioned, in terms of the managing money, I think that is an interesting thing. That was one of the early things that I learned in business. I had a contract-based company, in terms of like we made our money based off of contracts and not just one-time fees or services or whatever it may be, but our large contracts. And one of the things that I learned pretty quick, like early on, is people pay you what they feel like what you could manage, right? So if I drive a Ferrari and I ask you for 50K, that's a no-brainer. But if I drive, I don't want to say a bad car just to be, but if I drive a car that costs a couple of dollars, then I can look at you strange when you ask me for 50K.
Yep.
Because now it's just like, babe, buying you a new car. That ain't even worth it, right? So it's about investing in yourself. And obviously it takes time. Like, I think people rush the two. If you feel as if you're valued something, if everyone felt like their services were valued 10K a month, right, then we would be in a completely different situation. But it's easier to work with the client, get a client to make more money, and then upsell a client when you're doing stuff like that. But it's just more about understanding that, like, you have to be able to understand that somebody's only going to pay you what they think you can manage.
Right.
No matter how old you are, you could be 20, you could be 18. If somebody feels that you can manage 100K a month, they give it to you. That was one of the first lessons that I learned. I did a few things with I worked with a lot of older guys. Older guys respect money when it comes to young men.
Money and time.
Yeah. So if you walk in the room and you look like you ain't got it, it don't whatever you say, it don't even matter. Like, if you're not willing to cut me this check to be to this table, I don't care to hear what you have to say, right? Like, so you learn a lot of that. Pitfalls, I would say, is that when you think you have a good idea, you probably have a bad one. Right? Like, you get started with something and it sounds like it's going to be amazing. It's going to go this beautiful path, and it's going to be all sunshine and roses. But it never really happens like that. Because of that, I've learned to I'm not a dreamer, right? Like, people think that when you're an innovator, you're a dreamer. No, I'm straight logic, right? Like, I'm a very logical, like, man. Like, you're not gonna, we're gonna start this business and have 100,000 users. Nah, like, let's grow this. This is how we're growing it. Let's test everything we need to test. Scale this, scale that. Like, that's me as a person. When I start businesses now, or if I invest any money into a business now, it's something that I already now have. I have 10 contracts locked up. I know that at minimum I'm gonna make X amount of dollars every month off of this business. I think, like, being able to understand the importance of structuring things that are already set. Don't buy shirts, sell the shirts first, and then get the shirts, and you know what I mean? Like,
to pre-order.
yeah. But the biggest downfall that most entrepreneurs would probably go through is all mental. Rebuilding yourself, remodeling yourself, seeing yourself a lot differently, knowing that people will change around you, things will change around you. And notice I didn't say you'll change, because you're always everlasting changing when you're operating at a specific frequency as an entrepreneur. But the people around you have to keep up, and it's quite hard a lot of times for people to keep up with you. And I started to realize that, it's easy to crash and burn when nobody else wants to help you paddle. Right? So that, and getting to understand your strict rules, your strict, hey, this is what I believe in, this is how it's going to be, being a quote unquote a-hole to, situations and to people, and being able to push your way into rooms and take what you want, because money's not earned, money's taken, right? So getting to understand and learn. But I don't think that you could shortcut the experiences of failing. So the pitfalls are part of the game. The quicker you can get to them, if you find board members, mentors, people that have already gone through it, one of the best things that you probably could do right away is read autobiographies. Not necessarily just people in your industry, but people in different industries that have written autobiographies. And you could chat GPT. It's pretty simple. Hey, I'm in steel. Who are the top people that have written autobiographies in this? And you read 10 of those books. By the end of it, you're probably the best CEO you could be in your environment, because you've learned what all of these guys have done in 40 years and their failures. You've learned it all in one setting. So I think stuff like that, that I've like little small things, and just allowing people to shorten my learning curve, and go about it in a way where I realize that either which way I'm still gonna fall short on specific things. So, but those are some of the things that I would definitely suggest. Obviously there's a lot more, but I think that's a good start.
Great nuggets though. So time, obviously education, a lot of patience. You mentioned definitely getting those mentors and coaches, bridge the gap as much as possible. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you having you here at The Balanced Perspective. If you have any questions, concerns, suggestions, if you want to try to find him, we're going to put all of the links below so that you can definitely reach out. And if need be, we'll definitely have you back.
Oh, for sure, man. Appreciate you for having me.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for tuning in to The Balanced Perspective. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Balance Advisors 242 for more insights, updates, and expert tips. And remember, a new episode drops every Wednesday. Until next time, stay balanced.